Right. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the North Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Reggie Labour, the Committee Chairman. A welcome to those in the room and also a welcome to those who may be viewing this online. Before I start, there is one change to the originally published agenda which I believe has been notified to everybody. That is item 9, 1 Rushmore Close Eastcote, was withdrawn by the Head of Planning yesterday and will come back to a future meeting of this committee. Apart from that, the agenda we are considering is the one that was published. Can I do apologies for absence first, please?
We've had no apologies for absence.
Thank you. Can I have declarations of interest? There are none, no. The minutes of the meeting, 14th July, are in the report. Can I take those as true and accurate? There are no additional matters and all items are in part 1. We have one petition item tonight, which is the first one, item 6. In terms of petitions, the right to address this committee are as set out in the Council's Constitution, as summarised in the committee papers, and as I will run through in a moment. And those are the only rights to address this committee. Other than that is a meeting of the other committee being held in the public domain. This meeting is being filmed tonight, and the filming concentrates on this table. Those of you sitting in the audience are only visible on film and will be heard when you are actually speaking. And can I ask at this point everybody, that's councillors, speakers, presenters, to ensure they speak into their microphones. One, so that everyone in the audience can hear what's going on, but secondly, that it comes out on the tape as well. In terms of speakers, applicants get 5 minutes to address us. You get 4 minutes on a green light, 1 minute on an orange light, and when you get to red I will stop you. To be fair to everybody, we have a petition in objection and a petition in support. I note petition in support comes from the applicant, so you get 5 minutes at this game. You're not getting a response right as well, because that's not strictly fair. The ward councillors for the ward have not indicated they're intending to speak, so that will be it in terms of speakers. Each item, the officers will present their report, which is in addition to the written report we already have. Okay, the voting members of committee tonight are Councillor Flynn, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Judiciu, Councillor Graham, Councillor Catra, Councillor Morse and Councillor Oswald. In the event of them achieving a tied vote, I get a casting vote. The officer team with us tonight, Peter Loveday is doing highways for us. Matt, I can never remember, Kozolowski, close? Yeah, it's not bad, is it? Is doing presenting for us tonight. James Rogers, the Head of Planning, will provide me with advice as needed. Luke Taylor from Democratic Services is my clerk, and Nicole Kidman is doing legal advice. And with that, that's the formalities done. We'll start, please, with item 6, land at 3 Olivia Gardens, Highfield. I don't know where I got that one from. We'll move on. Maybe.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 6, land at Olivia Gardens, Highfield. Just before I start my presentation, I would just like to clarify that the application is recommended for refusal. There is a reference in the last line of the summary to the application being recommended for approval. This is in fact a drafting error, and the application is recommended for refusal. In terms of the proposal, plan permission is sought for the demolition of the existing garages and the erection of a 2-storey detached dwelling. The site, which is outlined in red, here is, it's a corner plot located on the southeastern side of Olivia Gardens, which is a private gated cul-de-sac. The proposed plot sits to the side of number 3 and to the side of the flank wall of number 2, Olivia Gardens, and forms part of the gardens to number 3 Olivia Gardens and Heacham, which is actually on Breakspear Road North. The site contains various outbuildings. I'll just flick to the photos up first for you. Doesn't work. Sorry, what was I? Contains various outbuildings. So the site at the moment contains various outbuildings and a detached double garage and brick paved parking area. The street scene is residential in character, comprising 4 large detached houses. The application site also lies within the Highfield conservation area. Excuse me. Sorry, I'll just try and flick through these so I can show you. As you can see outlined there in red is a specimen oak tree which is protected by a tree preservation order, and it's located in a neighbouring garden very close to the eastern boundary and overhangs the site. A similar planning application was refused permission back in 2000 for a detached dwelling on the same site. The application was refused on the following grounds: loss of open gap between the houses and the resulting impact on the open character of the conservation area, and the impact on the TPO oak tree. These reasons were upheld at appeal by a planning inspector. This appeal decision notice has been circulated to members. In terms of the current scheme, just bear with me. Can you go back to the proposed plans, please? That's it. In terms of the TPO tree, the Council's Trees and Landscaping Officer has raised no objections to the current proposals, subject to conditions ensuring that the tree is properly protected. In terms of the principle of the development, the site lies within an established residential area where there is no objection to the principle of the intensification of the residential use, subject to all other material planning considerations being acceptable. In terms of these, the impact on the character of the area, the proposal would infill the open gap between the properties, impacting on views of the site from the cul-de-sac. Furthermore, it would be a cramped form of infill backland development on a modest sized plot, as identified by the inspector in the previous appeal decision. The proposal was therefore considered to result in the loss of open gap views, which would detract from the open character of the street scene and would fail to preserve the character and appearance of the Highfield conservation area. In terms of the addendum, members will note that we have added some additional text for clarity to the report. There's also an additional reason for refusal, which clarifies that this is an unacceptable backland development. You will also note that we have received additional correspondence from the applicant raising concerns with how the application has been determined. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
If I can just follow up with members regarding the point about the handling of the application. I know that members have been circulated some correspondence from the applicant on this issue. I'd like to quickly comment before members hear petitioners or determine the application further. So in determining a planning application, there's a case officer that is appointed. They will then engage with the applicant, normally in a transparent manner. There may be exchanges of information. Sometimes even the applicant may be informed of a likely recommendation. But ultimately, the way our scheme of delegation works is that the decision is either made by the Council's Head of Planning, myself, under delegated authority, or there's a report in my name that goes to the Planning Committee meeting. Now, the relevance of this is some of the information you have been sent predates the committee report and the committee addendum. Two points I'd therefore wish to stress is that the report before you does recommend refusal as amended by the addendum sheet. So that is what I, as Head of Planning, are asking you to consider. Your role as a committee is to decide whether the application is acceptable essentially with reference to material planning considerations, the submitted plans and the council's adopted planning policies and guidance. It isn't your role to evaluate the actual handling of the application. Nonetheless, the council does have a complaints process, and if any applicant or indeed an objector or third party does have concerns regarding the handling of a planning application, there is a separate process from your consideration of a planning application that does exist for them to raise any concerns they have, and then the council will respond to those concerns. But as I say, to clarify, the report before you is as set out in the committee agenda and as amended through the addendum sheet. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, thanks for that. I will move straight to the petitions on this one, please. Mr. Parkinson, petition and objection. If you'd like to take a seat at the table, if you press the grey button on the middle of the microphone, it will light it up. We will start the timers when you begin to speak.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jerry McGrath wishes to build a 4-bedroom house on the back garden of number 3 Olivia Gardens. The proposal is to shoehorn a sizable house between 2 existing houses. There's not enough room for it. The proposed house would be crowded into a small cul-de-sac, which already every house seems to be enlarged. The proposal would make a bad situation of overdevelopment worse. The request is to build a house which would fill a gap between 2 properties, so that Olivia Gardens would become claustrophobic. The views from 3 adjoining roads would be restricted. The request to build would not preserve or enhance the appearance of the conservation area. Therefore, the request to build should be rejected. We know that conservation areas are about the future, our community's future, and the legacy we leave for others. We are here today to do what is right for the conservation area and for the future. Conservation areas are in the best interests of all of us. A few people assert that nobody cares. This just is not true. The people who wrote the conservation area legislation cared. We care. The people who helped with the objection letter care. The people who signed the petition care. And all the people who are here today care. Our message is one of a positive future for those that come after us. And that is what conservation areas are about. Let us in this room be proud of what is decided today. What we ask is that we all do our best to preserve the built environment. I ask you, do the right thing, do the proud thing, reject the proposal.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. McGrath?
I'm Mr. McGrath's representative, Nicholas. Gather me notes. Good evening, one and all, councillors and people here. Right, I've got a couple of points. I want to be as succinct as possible, but I think they're very important. First point I'd like to make is Mr. McGrath has lived in Olivia Gardens for 26 years. Never had one fallout with any neighbour, including a petitioner. Not one. He's a very big supporter of the local community, hugely. The football club, the cricket club, the local British region. Very well thought of fellow. Obviously I like him. And by the way, Nicole, you're looking lovely. Right, the other thing I'd like to bring up is an email sent out today. Did any of you receive it from Mr. McGrath? No, it was sent out late because we didn't know.
Yes,
What I'll do is,
and the head of planning has already commented upon it, so
Yeah.
move on.
but I would like to run through it.
on.
That's the one.
Yeah, the head of planning has already, the report we are considering is the one that is before us.
Okay.
So don't sidetrack us into anything else, please.
Okay, sorry. Right, now then, the other thing I'd like to bring up is, this is the second application Mr. McGrath's brought forward, and it's the second time the same person has objected to it. It does make me wonder, is it a personal thing? I don't know. Maybe this shouldn't be brought up at this stage, but I think people should be aware of it. The second time it's been objected to. This proposal will have no bearing on the objection of whatsoever, or his family. It will have no impact at all on him whatsoever. For example, well, Mr. McGrath tried to discuss it with him several times, and the response was, "Oh, there's too many objections, I can't talk about it," which I find not very nice. But going further than that, as talking about the conservation area, the main point that was brought up by the objection was the oak tree. Well, the oak tree will not be obscured from view in any way whatsoever by this. It can only be seen from Breakspear Road North and Olivia Gardens. It will still be seen from Breakspear Road North, and it will still be seen from Olivia Gardens. Also in the report, it mentions greenery. That basically they're bushes and apple trees, to be perfectly honest. But I think you should be aware that there is a planning application that has been accepted for a 7x7 games room in the same gap. If that goes up, you still won't see the aforementioned greenery. But that's another point I'd like to make. Now then, another thing I'd like to get back to is that this building is a totally non-profit making idea. It is purely to provide a house for Mr. McGrath's son and wife and grandchildren, so they can all live together in a community that they all support. Now, I don't think any one of you here can honestly say it wouldn't appeal to you if you could do it with your own family and your own children. And as far as the petition is concerned, there were 30 against arrived. We produced 74. And now I realise that can mean nothing, but it was done purely as an example of that a 30-person petition can be dragged up from anywhere if so required. I would also ask you to take into account that I'm running out of time. Well, I shall leave it at that, on that short note, but thank you all very much for hearing me, and please bear in mind that this is a family project.
Does have any questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We open it for debate. I will remind people, as usual, that we stick to the material planning considerations. Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Setting aside what it says at the end of the summary, it is therefore recommended for approval. So if we strike that out, it's now for refusal. Could I just ask James if at one time this application was for approval?
Well, the point I was clarifying is that, yes, during determination, there are various individuals involved with the determination. I don't want to say anything unfavourable. Some junior staff did indicate that it could perhaps receive a favourable recommendation. But as soon as senior staff looked at this application, it was made clear that it was not acceptable, did not comply with the development plan policy, and was harmful to the conservation area. But there was an engagement with the applicant at one point, and I quite understand the applicant would have come away from that engagement thinking the application was heading towards an approval. Obviously, it's regrettable that that happened, but as I explained, that the way the decision-making process works is that the decision on the application effectively comes from me as head of planning as either a delegated decision or a recommendation to the planning committee. So historical events that may have occurred that have been referenced aren't actually really relevant to your determination of this committee, of this application tonight. The real things for you to consider are the report before you and what's in the addendum sheet.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Reading the report, looking at the photographs, reading the addendum, it's a case of bog standard garden grab. It's nothing else but we've got a piece of ground here, let's build on it. I've got no qualms in supporting the officer's recommendations.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the applicant's submission there, we heard a lot of reasons to support this application, virtually none of which seem to have anything to do with planning whatsoever. The two issues reading the report that strike me as being most important here are the issue of overdevelopment, which Councillor Morgan has just referenced, and also concerns that this development is not appropriate given the conservation area where it's located in, and for those reasons I tend to support the position of the officers.
Okay, is anybody likely to differ from that on me? But no? Has anybody got any questions on the technicalities of this one? Councillor Catcher?
Thank you, Chair. Just after listening and seeing the area that the proposal is to build a house, I find it very difficult how that can be possible when we already discussed the area which is small, and also how on earth are we going to, there's no parking facilities. That area is going to be very, very tight for a house anyway. Like my colleague up there said that it's like a building in a back garden or something like that. So therefore, I have no problem moving on.
I sense where this is going. Is someone giving me a proposal to take me forward? Councillor Higgins, do you want to take me forward?
I propose that the recommendation is upheld.
As varied by the addendum with the additional refusal reason. Councillor Morgan, are you seconding? All those in favour, please clearly show. Good, that one's refused. Thank you very much. I move on to item 7, 39 Highfield Drive, Ickenham. Non-petition item.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 7, 39 Highfield Drive in Ickenham. The proposal is for the erection of a single-storey front extension, entrance canopy extension, part first floor side extension, part two-storey, part single-storey rear extension, a front dormer roof extension involving the conversion of the existing loft space, the installation of roof lights to the side and rear roof slopes, and the external alterations, including the rearrangement of openings and the enlargement and alterations to the roof. Members will note that the development is actually a heavily extended house on Highfield Drive. We've had extensive history on this. There is an enforcement notice at the moment that requires the removal of the extensions that you can see. The current proposal before us is sort of a halfway house between the two. They're looking to demolish some of the elements that we've asked them to, but retain others. I'll just go through exactly what the difference is between what you see on your screen, which has previously been refused, and what they're proposing. So the current proposal is significantly different to what has been constructed on the site. The main differences are, if I can just get to the last photo, because I'll start with the rear. So you see that the proposal has two rear dormers. The main difference is that the rear dormer and the ground and first floor two-storey side two-storey front and side extensions have been removed. A cat slide roof is proposed on the elevation facing number 41 Highfield Drive, which is to the left of the photo. This will be approximately 2 metres deeper than the original and will have a slightly different pitch. The rear extension is also smaller by virtue of the fact that the side extension has been removed. If I just go back to the front to show you, make it clear what's actually happening. Just bear with me. I'll start to struggle with the pointer. Can you just go back to the first photo, please? Just stop there. That's it. Thanks. So what they're doing is removing this element here, adjoining number 421, and going to replace it with, if you could, a cat slide roof. I'll just go back to the plans to show you. Let's go back to the, there we go. So you can see the plans actually, just if I can clarify, show, the existing plans show what the house looked like before all these extensions were built, and the proposed plans here are what is proposed. So you can see you had a cat slide roof here, and so they're removing this two-storey element which was visible on the photos and returning it to a similar form as had existed previously. The inspector for the previous appeal accepted that the appearance of the front dormer extension was acceptable, and there was no previous reason for refusal relating to this aspect of the development, so we're in support of the front dormer. Overall, the amended scheme is considered to overcome the previous reasons for refusal and would now be sympathetic to the design scale, form and the proportion of the original property. There's also another proposal that's an additional that hasn't been built, is this front sort of canopy with sort of Roman style pillars on it. Again, if I just flick through the photos and show you that this is actually something that is quite prevalent in the street scene. As you will see here, this house has maybe 6 of them, if not more. There's another house next door which has a couple as well. The current proposal is acceptable in design terms and would not harm the visual amenity of the area, which is characterised by large dwellings, many of which are significantly larger than the one at number 39, and in many instances, larger than the current proposals, some with large entrance canopies and columns. As a result, it would no longer appear over-dominant or incongruous in the street scene. In terms of the impact on the neighbours, it should be noted that the proposal is significantly smaller than earlier proposals under previous planning applications. Both previous applications for the development as built have been refused, but neither on the grounds of the impact on the residential amenity of neighbouring properties. Therefore, by virtue of it being reduced in scale, any potential impact on neighbours will also have been reduced. Given that this proposal represents a significant reduction in scale, the proposal is not considered to harm the residential amenity of neighbouring properties. The development would also comply with the 45-degree rule as measured horizontally in all respects, and subject to a condition, none of the new openings would be likely to give rise to any loss of privacy. Therefore, the proposal is not considered to raise any concerns in regards to the impact on neighbouring amenities. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Who wants to start this one? Councillor Higgins.
Dog dinner comes to mind straight away. Well, there you go. If you don't follow the planning regulations in this borough, then we will make you change what you've done. So I mean, I don't understand the pillars. It's not as grand as other properties, but well, each their own. I go with officer's recommendation on this one. I'll second it.
So on that basis, we've proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you. That's approved. Thank you very much. I have one more. Item 8 is the Northwood Club, 20 Chestnut Avenue, Northwood, which I think is fairly straightforward, is it not, Matt?
It is, hopefully. Thank you, Chairman. The proposal was for a single-storey extension to the swimming pool to accommodate a hot tub. There's some external alterations to the facades to include new openings and windows to allow for internal reorganisation and relocating of the nursery from one side of the building to the other. Plans aren't particularly clear, but the extension to which we're referring is in this location here. Maybe just flick. Oops, apologies. Yeah, so it's sort of in this location, and there are several changes as well to the facades. In terms of the main issue, the site is located in a green belt, which is why the application has had to come to committee. The proposal would increase the size of the building area by 19 square metres. Given the limited scale of development, the single-storey nature of the extension, it's setting in from the boundary of the site with the highway, and the existence of a number of mature trees on and around the site which would restrict views of the extension, it is considered that the proposal would not result in a disproportionate change to the bulk and character of the building, nor would it significantly increase the built-up appearance of the site. It would therefore have an acceptable impact on the visual amenity of the area and on the openness of the green belt. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Higgins, you are first.
I go with officer's recommendation on this one.
Councillor Cass, are you going to second that? All those in favour, please show. That one is approved. Thank you very much. 7:30.
Chairman, before you close, it is Alex's last committee with us. He's off to touring the world, and I'd like to wish him all the best. And thank you for all your hard work serving the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.